Pokemon Renegade Platinum, the game that makes you think you're doing good and then just pulls it all away. The trainers have stronger Pokemon and better AI. The gym leaders have stronger teams and their full teams of 6. Today I'm playing it as a standard Nuzlocke with standard Nuzlocke rules here on the screen. Can I beat Drayano's ROM hack as a Nuzlocke? Let's find out. Our run starts with our starter choice. We pick the best of the bunch, Chimchar, and name him Jimmy. We don't talk about the first rival fight. We head to the professor's lab, where we get our Pokedex, go home to tell our mom that we're never coming back, and steal her Eevee, who we name Paul. After beating Dawn and getting our Pokeballs, we can finally get some encounters. It's good to note here that I did not know you can get another starter. I figured that out later. We get a Sentret named Useless, Roar the Magikarp, and in Jubilife City, we get Greg the Bulbasaur. After leveling everyone to level 15 and evolving Jimmy and Useless, we slap up Dash Sign and make our way to Orberg City. I forgot how overleveled I was and absolutely murked the Orberg tunnel encounter. I start the fight with the reporter to get my next encounter and accidentally level Jimmy to level 17. Now I can't use him against Rourke. Not that I was going to use him anyways. We collect our Mudkip and then we evolve a few more Mons, including Paul into Jolteon, using the Thunderstone that we got from Rourke. After, we head straight to the gym to fight him. I lead with Greg, who I think will be all we need here. We hit Nose Pass with a super effective Magical Leaf, which does not take it out in one hit, and he paralyzes me. He's going to heal here, so I just attack and get full paired. He sets up a Stealth Rock and I one-shot with Magical Leaf. That's incredibly annoying because the first one was a low roll. I know Geodude has Fire Punch, so I switch it to Marsh Stomp. Doing no damage with that, we go for Water Gun, which absolutely decimates that Geodude. I'm kind of scared of this Cranidose's Zen Headbutt, but I don't have anything that I want to switch into, so I go for a Water Gun, which brings him to half and activates his Citrus Berry. He hits me hard with the Zen Headbutt, and I have no choice but to go for a Bulldoze. And boom, we one-shot! I should have just done that from the beginning. Bonsly comes out, and I switch to Greg on a Brick Break. Rollout is scary, but I don't have a safe switch, so we risk it and live on 3 HP. Wow. Magical Leaf takes him out. He sends out his large rock snake and we need to switch. I send out Useless, which takes a lot of damage from the Bulldoze. I was not very prepared for this fight and now I'm kind of regretting it. He hits me with another Bulldoze and I hit with a Crit Slam. That doesn't do very much and we go down the following turn. Our first death. This Onix outspeeds everything I have and one by one our team goes down and we have to start over. For attempt 2, we pick Jimmy and Paul again, followed by some different encounters, including a Burmy who I named Bruh. Safe to say I wasn't too happy about this encounter. We also run into a Lotad, but we killed it. Something worth noting, Tina, our Surskit, received a buff in this game, which makes her more viable for us. This time we evolved Eevee into Espeon instead. Time for round 2 with Roar. We lead with Storm while he leads with Nose Pass. That chunk of a mountain is faster than me and sets up Stealth Rock, and I take him out with a crit Bulldoze. Geodude then gets destroyed by a Water Gun. Funny how I'm faster than the pebble, but not the chunk of the mountain. He sends out his Ace, and I'm shivering in my boots. He hits a Zen Headbutt before a Bulldoze takes him out. Storm is an absolute legend. Small Crybaby comes out next, and we hit him with the Bulldoze. He uses Brick Break, and we finish him shortly after. Big Rock Snake comes out next. I'm not very confident that Storm could survive another attack, so I switch to Poppy Seed. We get hit by a Bulldoze that brings us to a little above half. I risk to crit and go for a Magical Leaf. After surviving the Bulldoze, we hit Magical Leaf to take Onix down. Lastly, he sends out Larvitar. Poppy Seed wants no smoke, so we switch into Jimmy and a hard Bulldoze that brings us to 12 HP. I go for Mach Punch and it crits! After running the damage calcs post-game, I realized that it was not going to kill unless it crit. Lucky me. We cut back to Jubilife City where Professor Rowan is giving some galactic grunts an earful. Me and Dawn spank them, more so Dawn because they barely targeted me, and continue on towards Eterna City. On our way, we catch Derek the Sandshrew, Kevin the Magnemite, and in Floaromatown, we select Totodile as our encounter, and name him Toidle. We evolve a couple Mons and then get ready for the showdown with Mars. She starts with Zubat, which Total absolutely no dips it. Speed Boost Yanma is next, which detects to get the speed boost and then hits us with a Sonic Boom. Crit Ice Fang takes it out. Next, she sends out Bronzor. We get back-to-back flinches on bites and finish off the metal plate. Lastly, the big bat Cat walks in. Toidle served its purpose, so we switch to Jimmy, who eats a Facade on its way. This gargantuan kitty is somehow faster and hits us with the Facade. We finish it with a Low Kick and Mach Punch combo. After saving the sweaty scientists, we head north into Eterna Forest where we meet with Cheryl. Wait, we have to fight this lady? Anyways, we body Cheryl, and we're forced to go with her through the forest. We encounter Buzzy the Nincada, and Scramble the Execute. And yes, of course I forgot about Rotom in the manor, but we get to that later. Gardenia decides to spend the day in the snow, and we have to get her back. We encounter a Chingling. I don't even want this. Bruh. In Mount Coronet, we find our encounter. Oh, brother! Now, you may be thinking, John, in a Nuzlocke, you need all the encounters you can get, and yes, you're right, but I'm built different. Never mind that. We tell her to get back so that we can clap her cheeks and talk to mommy. I mean Cynthia. About our decks. Our big decks. Our battle with Gardenia starts. She leads with Blossom and we lead with Steven. We immediately wing attack and she misses her stun spore. Leech life crits, taking down the Blossom. Next, she sends out Roserade to go for extra sensory, so we switch into Paul. Paul eats it, she retaliates with the magical leaf that thankfully does not crit, and we hit her with our own extra sensory, which unfortunately doesn't quite one-shot. She heals with her citrus berry and I go for an extra sensory expecting a heal. She does just that and we're able to take out the Roserade. Tangela walks out and we switch into Steven, who eats a grass knot. We leech life and it crits again. I forgot about Tangela's item, which halves the damage from flying type attacks, and I go for a wing attack. She lives on a sliver, thankfully she misses. Wow, I'm lucky. Grottle is next. We go for a confuse rate and he hits a leech seed. He hits himself in confusion and we leech life. That does a good chunk of damage. After leftovers and leech seed recovery, he's just sitting good. This battle is going nowhere, so I switch into Jimmy, expecting a protect, and I go for a flame wheel for the one shot. God, this thing was annoying. Next, she sends out Charon. I try to break its sash with fake out, but Jimmy was already out, and yeah. She sets up Sunny Day and goes for Weather Ball. We hit her with a super effective flame wheel that brings her down to her sash, and forgetting that she still has a potion, I go for a Mach Punch, which does nothing, and we get hit again with a Weather Ball, which thankfully doesn't crit, and we finish Charon with the flame wheel. Lastly, she sends out Breloom, which has Mach Punch, so we switch into Steven to eat it, and finish the Breloom with a 4-time super effective wing attack. Gym number 2 down. I somehow made that so much harder on myself than needed. After berating the grunt up front at the galactic building, we make our way up and start the fight with Jupiter. She leads with Golbat and goes for a Giga Drain, then we Ice Fang, which gets a crit and gets the Golbat deep into the yellow. I switch to Steven, who eats the Giga Drain, a Crunch finishes her Golbat, and she sends out Tangela. I go for Leech Life, but it doesn't do very much, and she uses Shockwave, which unfortunately crits, and Steven dies, our first death of the second run. There's no time to mourn. We switch into Jimmy and she hits me with a Shockwave. I go for Flame Wheel, which takes out the Tangela. Next out is Sableye. I switch into Tina, who gets hit by a Shadow Claw on the way in. I go for Bug Bite to take its Citrus Berry, then a couple of Bubble Beams finishes it off. Last is her Ace Skuntank. This thing is kind of a problem. I go out into Poppy Seed, who takes more than half from a Night Slash. Oh god, I'm in trouble. At this point, I know someone is gonna have to get sacked. What I didn't expect was the disaster this was about to be. I switch into Jimmy, who gets brought down super low by a poison jab. I get some chip damage with fake out, then unfortunately the giant skunk is faster and Jimmy gets taken out by a Night Slash. I send out Tina to get an Intimidate off and switch into Poppy Seed, who gets hit by a Night Slash and lives on 12 HP. I go for a pointless attack and Poppy Seed gets taken out by a poison jab. I switch into Tina to get another Intimidate off, and I switch back into Toidle, who takes minimal damage from a Night Slash. She goes for Focus Energy, and I hit it with an Ice Fang that freezes. Toidle is a legend. A couple turns later, Skuntank thaws out, but goes for Torment, and we hit an Ice Fang that activates her Citrus Berry. We hit another Ice Fang, and then one final Hoorah from Toidle with a Torrent boosted Aqua Jet before a final Night Slash takes him out. Rest in peace, King. I send out Paul, who gets Skuntank very low with a Swift, and luckily it just goes for Torment, and we finish it off with a Covet. Good god, that battle was rough. She leaves behind a Porygon. It looks sad. Me too, buddy. Me too. We name him Rick. We go to the bike shop to upgrade our ride, and Cynthia stops us wanting to give us her eggs, which we quickly accept. Her egg hatches into a Togepi, which we name P. We make our way down Cycling Road, and before we can proceed, this NPC stops us and tells us we have to go into Wayward Cave. Why? We catch a Magmy, who we name Rena. We lost Bob to the trainers on Route 207. RIP Bob. In Wayward Cave, we find Zubat, which I'm not doing Species Clause, so I catch it and name it Steven 2. This random little girl then attacks us. She leads with Togetic, which Kevin outspeeds and hits a discharge to one shot. Next out is Haunter, who goes for a double team, but Kevin sees right through it and hits a Thunder Wave. Kevin hits a discharge and one shots the Haunter, which we could have just done in the first place. Porygon 2 comes out. We outspeed and hit it with a Thunder Wave, and he ends up fully paralyzed. Nice. Then we finish the Porygon with a couple discharges. Last out is Kadabra. He outspeeds to hit us with a Psybeam, and Kevin paralyzes him with a Thunder Wave. We clean up Kadabra and move on. Stupid kid. The battle with Dawn was pretty straightforward, no real complications here. We evolve Kevin into Magnezone and catch Gigi the Roselia. The next fight is going to be the hardest we've faced so far. Aaron with a full team of some insane bug types. He's about to give us a run for our money. He leads with Dustox and I lead with Rena. Rena outspeeds and one-shots with Fire Punch. Next he sends out Venomoth, and I switch into Tina expecting a Sleep Powder, but instead he goes for Sludge Bomb. I hit a Psybeam and he goes for Sleep Powder. Luckily, I prepared. for once, and gave Tina a Chesto Berry. I finish it off with another Psybeam. Beautifly's out next. We switch into Kevin, who tanks an Air Slash and a Bug Buzz. We retaliate with a Discharge, bringing Beautifly down to its sash, then finish it next turn. Scissor walks out, and we paralyze it. On the switch to Rena, he's fully paralyzed, and then we one-shot with a Fire Punch. Last out is Drapion, and this thing is a menace. Sniper plus a scope lens makes this thing a problem. He begins to set up for the sweep with a Source Dance, but luckily we hit our Will-O-Wisp. He goes for a Cross Poison, and of course we get poisoned. Rena also hits her Confuse Ray. Then we switch into Steven 2 that eats a Night Slash. He hits a Night Slash, and Steven goes for Crunch that does pretty much no damage. The burn damage brings Drapion down to below half, and I switch into Tina to get another Intimidate off, while she eats a non-crit Night Slash. Now I thought the Flying Water Bug is faster than the Giant Scorpion, but I was completely wrong, so Tina unfortunately falls. RIP Tina. Rick comes in, who promptly gets crit by a Cross Poison and gets taken out. I guess I did avoid crits way too many times. It was about time I was punished. I switch into Kevin and we survive on 19 HP and take him out with a Tri Attack. We live to continue our Nuzlocke at the expense of Rick and Tina's lives. They will be missed dearly. We fly through the gym and begin our fight with Fantina. She leads with Drift Blimp and I lead with the GOAT Kevin. On the first turn, she sets up a Con Mind while Kevin goes for a Discharge and knocks it out. Next is Dusclops. I go for a T-Wave and Dusclops Shadow Punches, bringing Kevin down to 69 HP. Nice. Dusclops gets fully paralyzed and Kevin takes him down with 2 Discharges. Banette is out next, and I decide to switch into Rena for a Will-O-Wisp, and she goes for Disable again. Banette goes for Sucker Punch that fails because we Confuse Ray. It's Rena's turn to finally attack, and we go for Fire Punch. That crits! Very well done, Rena. 3 Pokemon down, 3 to go. Next now is Miss Magius. Feeling confident, I have Rena go for Confuse Ray, but she outsped and hits us with a Power Gem that crits, taking out Rena. Devastating. I switch out into Kevin and she sets up a Calm Mind, and I go for Flash Cannon. Not wanting to take an attack at +1, I switch Kevin into Jill, but unfortunately for me, she goes for another Calm Mind, meaning I probably could have KO'd with another Flash Cannon. She goes for a Dazzling Gleam, Jill barely survives and sets up Rain. I now outspeed with Swift Swim, and I don't want to switch into an attack, so we go for Water Pulse for Chip, and Jill is taken out by a Shadow Ball. I send out P next, and Moonblast takes it down. Gengar comes in, and I switch into Steven 2, who eats a Sludge Bomb and a Shadow Ball the next turn, bringing him down to 10 HP. We go for a Crunch that doesn't KO, so Steven 2 falls. I guess I'm just not meant to have a Golbat, but then again, I should have evolved it into Crobat. And as to why he wasn't a Crobat yet, well, I forgot. I send out Kevin and he gets hit by a Shadow Ball that lowers his special defense before taking out Gengar. Her last Pokemon Spiritomb comes out, and unfortunately, I know what I have to do. Kevin may have to go down here. I use Thunder Wave that paralyzes on the first turn, and we hit a Discharge. Unfortunately, luck was not with us there. RIP the GOAT himself. We send out Paul to finish Spiritomb with a Dazzling Gleam. The battle was won, but at the cost of 4 team members due to my lack of preparation. We evolve Megan into Golem and Storm into Swampert. Our next fight is against our rival Dash. Megan and P clean him up pretty easily. After the fight, a maid comes in and says she needs help at the mansion, and we quickly rush to get there. On our way there, we catch Kirk the Curlia, and in the mansion, Saturn is mind controlling this old man, and we have to rescue him. The only notable thing about this fight was Raichu using Grass Knot and taking out poor Megan. We get a few encounters: Pika the Pikachu, who we evolve into Raichu, Cutie the Snubble, Roy the Scyther, and Deborah the Kadabra. Our road to Gym 4 was brutal for us. We fight this treasure hunter that absolutely murks GG with a Zen Headbutt. And against the Ace trainers at the end of the route, I'm petrified. I decide to take them one-on-one, and Chris dies to a switch on a Psychic from a Gardevoir, Pika to a Sludge Bomb from her Roserade, and QT to an Air Slash because I thought he would outspeed. What the heck? Storm also goes down because of a missed Rock Slide. Jeez. At least we won, but my lack of information is really getting the best of my teams. We level up Buzzy until he evolves and head to the Veilstone City Supercenter and purchase a Leaf Stone to evolve Scramble into Executor. We collect the coin case and go gamble our life away, depressed because we keep losing Pokemon. With our winnings, I purchase Leftovers and a Focus Sash and level everyone to the cap. We only need to battle 1 trainer before the gym leader. We start our battle with Maylene. She leads with Medicham, and I lead with Kirk. She goes for a Fake Out, flinching us, but raising our speed. We go for an X-Scissor, and she hits a brutal Zen Headbutt that lowers us to 13 HP. I hit for one more X-Scissor, but Kirk gets taken out by an Ice Punch. I send out Buzzy next, who cleans up and takes down the Medicham, as well as getting her speed boost. Ape is out next, but look at our team. No one wants to come in on any attack against this thing. So I go for an aerial ace and she decides with a fire punch that brings Buzzy down to his sash. Now Infernape has Mach Punch. Against that attack, we can switch, so we go into Paul to eat it and oh, I forgot she would heal. It doesn't matter anyways because we take it out with a Psychic. Toxico goes down the same way and out comes Lucario. I have no one to switch into, so I attack with Paul, bringing it low, and Paul gets taken out by a Flash Cannon. Buzzy finishes it off with an aerial ace. Machamp is up, who I hit with an aerial ace and gets taken out by Payback. His Toxic Orb activates, activating his Guts boost. I send out Scramble to set up a Reflect as we get chunked by another Payback. I switch into Royd on the next Payback, and he's left a little above half. He goes for a Thunder Punch that I should survive, but it crits, and Royd goes down. He goes down to poison damage, and I send out P, who handles Glade smoothly. Badge secured, but at another heavy cost. And then me and Dawn, mostly Dawn, beat up some galactic grunts. Then we get Fly. This is what I've been waiting for. Remember how I missed the additional starters at the beginning? Well, we fly back to Sanjum Town and pick up the starters. From the two, we want to keep it Turtwig, which we name Pops, and awesome. He has shell armor. That's going to be very useful. We fish on Route 219 and get Freya the Horsey. We get the shield fossil from Eterna City, who we revive into Boy the Sheldon, and we go back to the chateau in Eterna Forest and get ourselves Washi the Rotom. You'll never guess what we turn him into. Before the gym fight, we have to go find Crasher Wake. We find the big back gym leader and tell him to get back to the gym. We return to Pastoria where our encounter at the Great Marsh is a Gulpin that flees. Oh well. After we prepare our team, we begin our battle with Dash. One Thunderbolt from Washi takes out his lead Staraptor, and he goes out into Breloom. I switch to Nuggies, and he goes for a Rock Tomb, lowering my speed. Next, I go for an Ice Shard to break his sash, as he puts Nuggies to sleep with a Spore. He's not going to go for Rock Tomb again with Breloom, so I switch into P on a Force Palm that thankfully doesn't paralyze, and I finish him with a Moonblast. Next out is Empoleon. I was thinking a Flash Cannon was coming my way, so I switch into Washi, but he just sets up Agility. The following turn, he outspeeds and goes for Swagger, while Washi hits a Thunder Wave. I switch into Deborah while he's fully paralyzed. A few Calm Minds and Light Screens later, we take out the Penguin. Heracross is bodied by a Psychic, and out comes out Snorlax. I won't one-shot Snorlax, so I switch into Nuggies, who eats a Crunch. I try and use Knockoff a few times, but Nuggies just wouldn't wake up and gets taken out. I go out into Washi and use Will-O-Wisp, but it misses. He hits a Body Slam, and the following turn I hit the Will-O-Wisp, taking less damage from the coming Body Slam. I send out Pops, who unfortunately gets paralyzed by Body Slam on the way in. I set up 4 Sword Stances and take out the Snorlax. Out next is Arcanine. I switch out into Washi to eat the incoming Heat Wave that leaves him on 15 HP. I make the decision to sack yet another member of our team and go for Thunder Wave. Luckily, he does become fully paralyzed, and I'm able to save Washi. And I switch into P on a Crunch that lowers his defense. I then switch into Boy on a Thunderfang, and a few attacks finishes the Hot Dog, winning us the battle. We need another tank, so I fly back to Jubilife City to get the school egg that I missed at the beginning. We're really hoping for a Munchlax, Cleffa, or at best, one Happiny. We hatch a Happiny, who we named Chunk, and I'm ecstatic. We evolve Chunk and find the TM for Toxic to teach it. The battle with Wake begins. He leads with Quagsire, and I lead with Washi. On turn 1, we go for a Sunny Day to get rid of the rain, and we get hit by a not so hard Aqua Tail. I go for a Will-O-Wisp, but we miss, and we get hit by an Ice Punch. The next turn, we hit a Will-O-Wisp, and the Quagsire is now useless. We switch into P and take it out with a couple of Moonblasts. Next out is Gyarados. I switch to Washi as Gyarados goes for a Dragon Dance. Oh. He gets greedy and goes for one more Dragon Dance as we connect with a Will-O-Wisp. Thank God. He sets up another Dragon Dance, and I go for Sunny Day once more, further crippling his water attacks. His Crunch chunks Washi as we hit with a Thunderbolt that he mitigates damage from with his Walkenberry. The burn takes him out shortly after though. Next out is Ludicolo, but the perfect counter for this is Chunk since he only has special attacks. I do the Toxic Stall stuff, and down goes Ludicolo. Poliwrath is out next, and even though I have sky-high physical defenses, I switch into P, who takes out Polly with a couple of Moonblasts after taking an Ice Punch. Out next is Floatzel, and with Ice Punch, I have to switch, so I go out into Boy, and for the incoming Aqua Tail, I go into Pops, who survives on a bit over half. He outspeeds and goes for Ice Punch, but we have a Yachi Berry equipped, who we got from the Berry Lady in Pastoria City, and we live on 21 HP. We hit a strong Earthquake that brings him to a sliver. I anticipated an Aqua Jet, but instead he heals. I'm back to square one. He goes for an Aqua Tail that brings us to 40 HP as Boy sets up Stealth Rocks for the Sharpedo in the back. We regen a bit more HP with Protect and Leftovers combo, and I switch into Washi to eat the incoming Aqua Tail, which takes him out. I am now able to switch into P, who takes him out with a Moonblast, and one more Moonblast on the Sharpedo, and we've won our 5th badge. Leaving the gym, Dashshine tells us there's a bomb at the Great Marsh, and he rushes over. We avoid as many trainers on Route 210 as possible. What? On our way into Celestic Town, Dawn stops us and wants to battle. She leads with Alakazam as we lead with Chunk. We eat multiple Psychics before Seismic Toss takes down the Zam. Next out, Lopunny. And I protect expecting a high jump kick, but she doesn't go for it. Instead opts for the accurate strength. I switch into Boy and finish her off with an array of Iron Heads, and not once did she high jump kick. Weird. Regardless, next out is Torterra, and we avoid an Earthquake with P. I'm in a bagel and don't really know what to do, so I switch into Deborah on a Rock Slide and hit Torterra with a Psychic before it finishes Deborah off. Next I send out Washi, who's holding a Focus Sash, and an Ice Beam takes out the Torterra. Next out is Clefable, who gets Toxic Stalled by Chunk. Then Mamoswine comes out, and I switch to P, hopefully to avoid an Earthquake. I then play the game of alternating between P and Boy until Mamoswine's out of Earthquakes, and we finish him off with a series of Iron Heads. Last out is Vaporeon, who gets Toxic Stalled by Chunk, who is starting to become our saving grace. Rest easy, Deborah. We then go and begin the fight with Cyrus, and this old man is menacing. He leads with Crobat as I lead with Washi. He goes for a Giga Drain that doesn't do too much, and I hit him hard with an Ice Beam. The following turn he misses Hypnosis, and Washi finishes him off with an Ice Beam. Next out is Magnezone, and we switch into Chunk because he only has special moves. And on the way in, she gets hit by a Thunderbolt, which paralyzes. But she doesn't care, and hits a Seismic Toss. Next turn, same thing happens, and the following turn, he takes himself out with Life Orb damage. Out comes Honchkrow, and we switch into Boy, who tanks a Night Slash decently on his way in. He goes for Swagger, and I decide to set up late rocks to help with the Weavile in the back. I try my luck with Protect and hit myself in Confusion as another Night Slash comes in. I then snap out of Confusion and Protect against Torment. Then on the next turn, I get hit by a Swagger again, raising me to +4. And Boy breaks through Confusion, hitting a Rock Slide, taking the Honchkrow out. Last out is Weavile, and it sets up a Sword Dance. I desperately need Boy to break through Confusion, and that he does, hitting a +4 Iron Head, taking Weavile out. Sheesh, Boy came in clutch. The next part adds a lot of length to the game because it's a few mini boss fights, with our first being in Pal Park. On our way to Pal Park, we caught Kite the Mantike and Frank the Nidorino. I evolved Freya into Kingdra after getting the Dragon Scale from the Dragon Tamer in Veilstone City, and Frank into Nidoking. After leveling everyone to level 50, I start the fight with Dreyarch. Let me tell you, this music bumps. The battle was going fine until his Metagross came out. I decide at this point the best thing I can do is sack him on and control the potential damage. I switch into Freya on a Zen Headbutt that brings her low, and we do outspeed and manage to get one Surf off to get him below half before Hammer Arm takes Freya out. That makes me sad. I send in Frank to finish the job with an Earthquake. After that, we clean up the battle and move on. We take on our rival, and this fight was very interesting. He starts off with Staraptor, and I send in Boy. He has a Choice Scarf, and I want to lock him into close combat. I then switch to P, who eats a close combat. Now this is where I messed up. I set up Nasty Plot. Now, this wouldn't be so bad if I wasn't Choice Scarfed. I completely forgot. Well, we're stuck here, so P eats a few more until Staraptor begins to struggle. We switch into Frank, who sets up 2 layers of Toxic Spice before we switch back into Boy on the last struggle. Out comes Breloom, who is now badly poisoned, and I go for Protect expecting a Force Palm. The good thing about Poison is now his Focus Sash is broken. I switch into P on a Force Palm, and she finishes off the Breloom with a Moonblast. Out comes Empoleon, who gets completely walled by Chunk, and after a bit, Dash switches him out into Heracross. I protect Chunk, and he goes for a Rock Slide, so I switch to Pops the next turn. Now, expecting a Bug-type move, I switch into P, who survives on 11 HP, and we take out Heracross with the Moonblast. Chonk deals with the Empoleon, and on his Arcanine, I switch into Pops. Then Boy to eat the Flare Blitz, which burns Boy, but Poison is slowly taking him down for me. Last out is Snorlax, who falls to 2 low kicks. On Iron Island, I encountered a water encounter instead of going into a cave, and got Big Milk the Pelipper. We whooped Riley and then proceeded to get carried by him through Iron Island. What a guy. We tell the easiest gym leader to return back to the gym so we can clap his cheeks. He starts with Bronzong, which isn't even built to do anything but set up screens. He sets up a Reflect, and I set up Rocks to take care of his Aggron Sash. I switch into Pops and set up Rock Polish, followed by 3 Swords Dances, and Pops absolutely bodies every single member of his team. Afterwards, a bomb goes off at Lake Valor. We go to investigate and find Saturn here, who wants to battle. Alakazam is the lead here, who gets handled by Chonk. Toxicroak is out next and goes down to an extra sensory from P. Bronzong down to a crit crunch from Pops. Octillery is taken out by a Thunderbolt and a Moonblast. Outlast is Rhydon. I switch into Frank and he misses Stone Edge. This miss saved Frank's life because I miscalced. I go for Earthquake, it only brings him to below half, and he fires an Earthquake of his own, taking Frank down to his Focus Sash before going down to a second Earthquake. I'm stupid lucky at this point, but regardless, we won our battle with Saturn. Now on our way to our hometown, Lake Variety, and let me tell you, this Mars fight was complete and utter bullshit. It starts with Crobat versus Boy. Turn 1, she goes for double team as I set up rocks, then another double team the following turn, causing Boy to miss his rock slide. Then the following turn, she goes for Hypnosis. Why not? She goes for a Giga Drain while I'm asleep doing practically nothing, and guess what? Another double team. Boy is still asleep, and it gets better. Another freaking double team. Boy finally wakes up and he misses his rock slide. Surprise, surprise. I'm not going to bore you with this fight because just to take out this Crobat alone took 8 minutes, and we didn't even take it out. It killed itself with recoil. We won and Team Galactic dips. On our way to Snow Point City, we encounter DD the Piloswine and Teeth the male Snow Rat. We fight the trainers in front of the Snow Point Temple, and disaster struck. I stupidly kept Washi in on a Tyranitar, and he goes for a Rock Slide, bringing her down to a sliver before she takes him out with an Ice Beam, but the Sandstorm finishes her off. R.I.P. Washi. Inside the temple, we encounter Loki the Weavile and watch as Candice puts the big idiot back to sleep. In preparation for our next gym fight, I want a Weather Setter. Hail makes Blizzard 100% accurate, so I need something to help with that. I grabbed Pelipper, and I thought this big water bird can definitely learn Rain Dance on level up, right? No, and I can't get Rain Dance until later. And against our Abomasnow, I don't have anyone that wants to get hit by an attack just to set up weather. So I prepare the only plan I had at the time. In comes Bruh, from way back in the beginning. Her sole job is to set up Sunny Day, so I equip her with a Focus Sash and made our way to the gym to begin our battle. She leads with a Abomasnow, and Bruh survives the blizzard with a Focus Sash, and we set up Sunny Day to get rid of that hail. Then the incoming Ice Shard takes out Bruh. Rest easy, Bruh. You have fulfilled your duty. Next, I send out Frank, who one-shots Abomasnow with a crit Poison Tail. Chong completely walls the incoming Glaceon, and Weavile is out next. After scouting what she was going to do next, I switch into Boy to eat the incoming what I thought would be a Crunch, but instead it was an Aerial Ace. Well, that works out better. Next turn, I make a big mistake and go for Protect as she goes for a Swords Dance. Uh-oh. She sets up another one as Boy goes for an Iron Head to bring down the Weavile deep into the yellow, and she goes for a Crunch that brings Boy scary low, but he takes Weavile out with an Iron Head. Out next is Mamoswine. I go for Protect to avoid the incoming Earthquake, but I don't have anyone that wants to switch into Mamoswine's Earthquake, so I have to let Boy go. RIP to my wall-faced dinosaur. The following turn, Loki KOs her with another low kick, and Chonk Toxic stalls the Wall Rain and Frostlass, winning us the battle. We make our way to Lake Acuity where, whoa, what were y'all doing? After walking into an awkward scene, we encounter Henry the Magikarp. We infiltrate Galactic headquarters. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it went very wrong. And this freaking fortress, after a few turns, decides, oh, now's a good time to blow up, and I lose P and DD. I'm devastated at this point. I run to the nearest Pokemon Center crying and replaced our Fallen with Henry and Washi. Now, I'm very sorry because here I unknowingly cheated. Washi was already dead and I put him in the wrong box, so that's my bad. Don't worry, he won't be here for long. We make it past all the grunts and listen to the senile old man make a speech about universal domination, and we go beat up the old man. He leads with Crobat and I lead with Loki. I am able to outspeed the Crobat with an Ice Punch, which brings him super low. He then hits Loki with a Brave Bird that would have killed us, but we survive thanks to our Focus Sash, and he goes down to recoil damage. Next out is Magnezone, who gets bodied by Pops after a Swords Dance and Rock Polish. Out comes his next Pokemon, Weavile. Pops wants nothing to do with the incoming Ice Shard, so I switch into the Ghost of Washi, who eats it. She then hits him with a Surf, and Washi gets hit by a Crunch. We repeat the same thing the next turn, and then I switch into Henry, who gets his Intimidate off, and funny enough, he goes for an X-Scissor doing minimal damage. I set up Dragon Dance with Henry as he gets hit by a Crunch, and oh, I completely forgot he had a Choice Scarf as well. Oh my goodness, the fact that I made it this far is the craziest thing. I switch into Frank on a Crunch, and he also gets Poison Touched, which is a plus. Nice. I go for Sucker Punch, but it fails because he goes for Ice Shard. The tracker that I used said he had Icicle Crash, not Ice Shard. I switch into Henry, who eats the incoming Ice Shard and outspeeds the next turn to KO with a Crunch. Out next is Honchkrow, and I send out the Ghost of Washi, who goes down to a Night Slash. I send out Loki, who one-shots with Ice Punch, Chonk walls Houndoom, and we win the battle. We have to go free the Pixie Pokemon, but instead of gathering another team member because our box really doesn't have anything useful right now, I go ahead into the battle with only 5 Pokemon. My lead is Henry against Saturn, who leads with Bronzong. I D-dance 4 times and KO after Bronzong sets up a Reflect. Out next is Rhyperior, and a couple of waterfalls drop him. My motor gets one shot, and the Octillery comes out after. I go for a Crunch without running Calx, and he lives by a lot, mind you, and takes Henry out with a Hydro Pump. Good lord. I send out Loki, who KOs the octopus with knockoff, and that brings out Toxicroak. I switch into Frank on a cross chop, and that doesn't do too much. I go for Earthquake, and he lives thanks to his focus sash and hits us hard with an ice punch that freezes. I switch back into Loki and finish him off with an ice shard. Last is his Alakazam, which Loki takes him out easily with a knockoff. This galactic grunk was setting up nasty plots, so I thought, okay, it's a special attacker. Nope. Chonk gets hit hard by a Brave Bird. Then against her Yanmega, Loki goes for a super effective ice punch, and it lives on a sliver, and takes out Loki with a Bug Buzz. Come on. Then on the last grunt before the top, I switched Teeth into what I thought was going to be a gunk shot because that's what he went for last turn, but nope, it's a cross chop and Teeth goes down. Against the grunts before the dreaded 12v12, I lose Derek to a Hurricane from a Beautifly. That's not all, I also lose Big Milk to a Hurricane as well. We go into what has to be the most bleak position to be against in a 12v12. I have 4 Pokemon. 4. The battle begins with Jupiter and Mars. They both lead with Crobats as I lead with Frank, and Dash sends out Staraptor. Mars' Crobat goes for a Torment on Staraptor, and Jupiter just sets up a double team. Staraptor hits Mars' Crobat with a Brave Bird, and Frank hits Jupiter's Crobat with a Thunderbolt and paralyzes. The following turn, Mars switches her Crobat and goes into her Bronzong, and Jupiter switches her Crobat into Gastrodon. Bronzong eats the double edge from Staraptor, and Gastrodon is immune to Frank's Thunderbolt. I switch Frank into Scramble, and Staraptor goes for a U-turn on the Bronzong, chipping away at it and sending out Arcanine. Gastrodon targeted the Staraptor with an Ice Beam, but Arcanine eats it up, and Bronzong just sets up rocks. The following turn, Arcanine takes out the Bronzong with a Flare Blitz, and Scramble takes out Gastrodon with an Energy Ball. Out next is Yanmega and Tangrowth. I switch Scramble into Frank, and Arcanine targets the Yanmega, taking it out with another Flare Blitz, as Tangrowth hits Frank with a pitiful damaged Sludge Bomb. Mars sends out her low Crobat, and it takes out Arcanine with a Brave Bird, taking itself out in the process. Frank brings Tangrowth deep into the yellow with a Poison Tail, and Tangrowth goes for a Focus Blast that also does nothing. Mars sends out her Big Back Cat, and Dash sends out Staraptor next. Purugly takes out Staraptor with a Body Slam as Frank KOs the Tangrowth. Out next for Dash is Heracross, and Bronzong for Jupiter. I have Frank Protect for the expected Psychic, and Purugly hits Heracross hard with a Play Rough. He retaliates with a close combat, taking out the cat, and would you look at that, Frank did get targeted by a Psychic. Out next for Mars is Electivire. I switch into Chonk, Heracross goes for a Megahorn and connects with Bronzong for a crit before he gets taken out by a Fire Punch from Electivire. Dash sends out Snorlax, and Jupiter sends out Skuntank. Chonk is not safe. Here I switch to Frank, who on the way in eats a Gunk Shot and a Cross Chop. Dash has his Snorlax goes for Slack Off. He's basically at full health, what are you doing? The following turn I have Frank Protect, and he gets targeted by both of them, and Snorlax hits with a Zen Headbutt. Frank does outspeed, so an Earthquake takes out Electivire. The Skunk takes out Frank with the Crunch. Rest easy, big fella, you were amazing. I send out Pops, and out last for Mars is Kangaskhan. She hits Snorlax with a Hammer Arm as Pop eats a Gunk Shot, but unfortunately getting poisoned in the process. Pop goes for an Earthquake, taking Skuntank out, and Kangaskhan down a bit before Snorlax hits with a Body Slam. Out comes the useless Crobat for Jupiter. Kangaskhan takes Snorlax out with a Crunch as Pop tries to do the same in return, but she lives on 1 HP. Crobat ends up fully parried as Dash sends out Empoleon. Empoleon goes for Grass Knot, taking Kangaskhan out, and Pops takes Crobat down low with a Crunch before getting taken out by a Brave Bird. I send out Scramble, and we take her out with a Psychic. Last out for Jupiter is Sableye, who goes for a Fake Out on Empoleon as Scramble sets up a Reflect. Empoleon cleans it up, winning us the battle. Dash truly helped us immensely in that fight. We go after Cyrus, who gets dragged into the Shadow Realm, and after taking way too long to solve these puzzles, I begin the double fight with Cyrus. Now, Cynthia auto heals the team, which I could have dropped off at the PC before entering, I think, but oh well. I go into a double battle versus Dialga and Palkia with a full team, but I lead with the 2 that are actually alive, Scramble and Chonk. Scramble eventually gets taken out by a Flash Cannon Special Ren combo, and I try and make everyone as useless as possible. Chunk actually lives to tell the tale and takes out the controllers of time and space. Way to go, Chunk. You're with me until the very end. Cyrus then challenges us again with his full team, and Chunk gets slapped by a Cross Poison. RIP, a real one. Despite this tragic loss, I had an absolute blast. However, going in without documentation, proper preparation, and even damage calcs truly bit me in the butt in the end. If you found a way to enjoy this video and you made it to the end, please leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.